God bless students. Dear students, in today's lesson we shall learn from unit number 1, Ideological Basis of Pakistan, with the topic Economic Deprivation of the Muslims in India, from the book of Pakistan Studies for class 9. Okay, dear students, under the heading of Economic Deprivation of the Muslims in India, we will start from the action of the War of Freedom 1857, after which actually the deprivation of the Muslims in India started. So first of all, the oppression of the Muslims begins because there was a general idea about the Muslims that they were the people who started this war of freedom. So they were tyrannized and they were harassed by the British people, and the Hindus declared themselves that they were not the responsible. In fact, the Muslims were held responsible for the war of freedom in 1857 by the Hindus. And due to this declaration, the Muslims became the target of wrath or anger of the British rulers. And the effects of those war of freedom was, the first thing was the governmental jobs. The governmental jobs were closed for the Muslims. The first thing was done was they were not taken in the army. So the doors for the Muslims were closed for the Indian army, and the doors of employment was also closed for the Muslims in all parts of India. If the Muslims are having the required qualifications, they were not taken by the government officials. And Hindus, instead the Hindus were offered jobs even though they were having the less qualifications. So this was a kind of clear indication for the Muslims that they are becoming the target of their anger and the target of their wrath due to the participation in the War of Freedom 1857. And the other things that were done by the British people, they confiscated their properties. The properties of the Muslims were confiscated. If the Muslims have any of the land or any of the factory, that was confiscated. If they had lands, and those lands were given to the non-Muslims. And the Muslims were made the tenants, the tenant cultivators. They were not the landowners anymore. And Sir Syed explained or depicted the difficult or the miserable condition of the Muslims of India in that time of period. He said, "No calamity has descended from heaven that had not searched the house of the Muslims before it came down to the earth." So the first thing that was happening to the Muslims, according to Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, they were receiving the difficulties or the cruelty of the rulers. The other thing that was affected, that was the business of the Muslim people. The business of the Muslim people was destroyed or ruined, and the gear was shifted to the Hindus. The Hindus were given the special privileges by the British people. Hindus established their monopoly in the local trade, and they progressed themselves. And the Muslim traders suffered economic crisis. Their goods were not purchased, their goods were not sold, and their goods were not accepted easily. And in those days, the Industrial Revolution was taking place all over the world. And the Industrial Revolution that was taking place in the United Kingdom or Great Britain, that was producing better and cheaper products compared to the products manufactured or prepared in India. And due to its manufacture of the goods made in Britain, resulted in the destruction of the cottage industry of the various nations, and including the Muslims were also affected. The cottage industry of India was collapsed because it was not able to compete the rates and the quality of the goods manufactured in the Great Britain. And the import of the British goods products were made easy into India, whereas the exports of the Indian goods was badly affected. And due to this reason, the unemployment was expanded, and the good number of people were affected by the this industrial revolution in India, in Britain. Dear students, we shall quickly review our lesson. War of Freedom started in 1857, and after this war, the Muslims were declared responsible by the Hindus, and after that, the Muslims became the target of the anger of the British rulers, and consequently, the government jobs were closed for the Muslims, and the properties of the Muslims were confiscated. Muslim landowners were turned out of their hands, means their lands were taken back by the government, and they were handed over to the non-Muslims. The business of the Muslims was ruined, and due to this, the products of the Muslims were not easily advertised or easily sold out, and the local industry was badly disturbed. And the Industrial Revolution in Britain also affected very badly the products manufactured in India. The import of the British goods was made easy into India, and the export of the local industry of India was made difficult because it was not accepted or taken in the Europe or United Kingdom or Great Britain.